Hello, everyone, and welcome to this conversation with Ed Mead from Viewber. My name is Andrew Knight, and I run the RICS Tech Partner Program here at RICS. I've been with RICS for over 10 years, and I work within the Standards Regulation and Thought Leadership Department. And my role is to really look at the whole impact of data and technology right across the built environment. So a very wide and exciting area to look at. So Ed, welcome, and thanks for coming along today.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. And as my moniker underneath says, I am a fellow of the Royal Institution, so happy to be here.
Great, that's great. And indeed, on that basis, actually, it'd be interesting to get your perception and a bit of your backstory as well. But your perception about how the PropTech sector is beginning to merge in a good way with the traditional property sector, if I can talk that. But do give us a bit of background for those who don't know you, Ed.
Yeah, I mean, I've got quite a lot of experience in the sector. I started in the game in 1979, and I've been in London throughout that time. And dare I suggest, built up a reasonable reputation for myself. Had some great mentors in the early in the early 80s and 90s. People like Andrew Langton at Aylesford's, Rebecca Reed from Reed Cunningham, some really good names who taught me the business properly. And then in the mid-90s, I joined Douglas & Gordon and ended up as part of the team running Douglas & Gordon, and which, as you may know, has just been sold to Foxtons. Yeah. Who would have seen that coming? But during that period, I engaged in a few things, particularly the PR scene, which was very nascent when I started. No one really spotted PR coming. And I was very lucky to be able to build a good profile for myself. And what happened to me is that after a few years at D&G as part of the team that was running it, it wasn't what I was particularly good at. I was much better when I was running Chelsea and doing deals and being a front man. And I'd come up with the idea along with my wife for Viewber. And I went to another friend of mine, Marcus Teferranti, who's the other co-founder of the business. And we started the business in sort of mid-2016. So I took quite a punt by leaving the London property scene, which, to be blunt, by then was in decline a little bit. It's coming back now, but that's another story. It's taken a few years for it to come back. And we had an idea that we were at Douglas & Gordon missing quite a lot of business at weekends and out of hours because we weren't getting viewings done. So the simple idea was to try and set up a service where we could provide people all over the UK. And unusually, I got out of the property industry and into the sort of PropTech side of it, which was very early days for that. But it gave me some extraordinary insight because it was a very exciting time. There were lots of businesses starting up, and it gave me the opportunity to go around the country meeting all sorts of extraordinary people, both on the PropTech side and people in the new online, so-called online sector, and other people in the industry who I knew quite well. I was also doing service with the Property Ombudsman. I still sit on their advisory panel, and lots of other bits and pieces. So I've been very heavily involved, stay involved in the property industry, but now have a relatively unusual insight into both sides, PropTech and the agency side.
Brilliant, brilliant. So on that theme of that kind of the joining together in a positive way of the PropTech sector and dare I call it the kind of traditional property sector, what's your view on where we are on that journey? How well do you think those two camps, as it were, are beginning to merge and really generate some value out of getting data and tech into the sector?
Well, things are definitely evolving. The problem is that it's certainly in terms of the high street agency market, 75% of them are small businesses, 1 to 3 offices, probably run, for want of a better expression, by someone like me, middle-aged bloke, done the same thing for 20 years, makes a decent living, but for whom changing the way they work and investing money in PropTech is quite an alarming prospect, because one mistake might put them out of business. So what you're tending to find is that the bigger businesses actually have a bit of a lead here at the moment. And I think it's part of what I'm excited about for the RICS Tech program or Tech Partnership is that they're going to be able to introduce, or at least put in front of a lot of their smaller members, the ability to do some of the things that their bigger members are already doing. So it's been a very slow journey. Indeed, from Viewber's perspective, actually, the vast majority of what we do now is outside the agency sector. We do stuff with social housing. It's not outside the property sector, but we do things in social housing, property management, build to rent, all this sort of stuff. But the agency sector is changing, and I think the pandemic has accelerated a lot of that. I think a lot of people trod water while the pandemic was on, wondered what to do. I'm not saying the pandemic's over, but certainly now people are getting back to normal in terms of the way they do business. They are now being forced to adopt new strategies for the future. Staff are leaving the industry. It's a very, very difficult time. And I think a lot of what people are doing can be enhanced. Holes can be filled by technology. And I think what you're doing with your tech partnership program is definitely able to give members a clue as to how to do that.
So, I mean, I'm building on that point. I mean, obviously, it's a key, I would say it's a key challenge for RICS to make sure that we maintain our relevance across all the things we do as data and technology gets embedded. You know, what sort of things, both as part of this program and beyond that, do you think RICS should be doing to make sure that our membership, our profession, do take advantage of this data and technology? Because it is becoming almost a revolution to some extent now in terms of how it's beginning to change the way the sector is operating.
Well, it is beginning to change the way the sector operates, but of course people don't quite know which one to go for. That's the difficulty. So again, having a partnership program where you can road test people and say, well, actually, you know, these people we've spoken to, we like what they do. I think for the RICS, I think it's a very important time. Clearly, it's been a difficult time for the RICS over the last few months with the leadership, et cetera, et cetera. But equally, it's been quite difficult for the NAEA and some of these other organizations out there. So from an RICS perspective, I think this gives a real opportunity to show members that they're keen on promoting what is changing and trying to give people help with that change. Sometimes it's very easy. As I said, if you're the type of sort of middle-aged guy, older middle-aged guy or girl like me who's running your business and you think, what the hell do I do? The RICS is looked up to by a lot of people. So the idea that they're finally engaging in this sector, I think is good for RICS members, and I think it's also very good for the image of the RICS.
Indeed, yeah, and certainly with the program, you know, we're keen, as you say, to put the kind of depth and breadth of these solutions out there, particularly to our smaller members who, you know, do need to use data and technology to make sure their businesses are as productive and as high quality as possible. And I think also we want to make sure that we can reflect the fact that standards still have relevance, that, you know, standards don't exist in some space outside of data and technology, whether it's client money handling, whatever it might be, making sure those standards do continue to be embedded. And also we're very keen to look at the whole area of skills and competencies, how these new skills need to be embedded both in terms of our existing professionals, but also attracting the next generation, looking at the kind of things that universities teach and making sure that our competencies and pathways are relevant. So I think it's a key area for us. So that's great. I mean, I think, you know, in closing, I suppose you were very keen to get on board. You know, what do you think was the main thing that drove you to say, well, actually, let's get on board and support this program?
Well, I think one of the other issues people have had is that they simply don't know who to back when it comes to the tech side of things. And there are a lot of businesses providing data and various parts of the services that agents might or might not require. And I think that there's been a big shakeout in the sector. I think an awful lot of businesses have gone out of business or they've consolidated. So the businesses that tend to be left tend to be looking pretty good. And we've seen recently a couple of examples with businesses like ARPM going under and leaving people in the lurch. Having an idea that the people you're dealing with are solid is absolutely vital. And there's more and more collaboration in the sector. I mean, you know, there's a successful guy in the agency space, a guy called Peter Knight, who runs a thing called EA Masters. He made a comment a few years ago that, you know, a lot of agencies by 2030 could be running with one person and all the rest of the services they need to do could be outsourced. The bits they need to do are to win business and to agree deals. Everything else could be outsourced. So there have been initiatives got together where people are putting together platforms. EA 2030, I just mentioned .co.uk is one such thing where they're doing start to finish PropTech solutions where people can pick what they need in the sales sector, for instance, and it works really well. And I think that is the future. I think people need to be able to pick and choose. Certainly the sector is moving away from flat fees, looking at menu-based fees, this type of thing. I think people want to be able to pick and choose what they need. And certainly what you're doing is going to enable them to pick people who are, dare I say, winners.
Exactly, overly, as you say, and I think there will be some increasing consolidation, won't there, in terms of a shakeout in terms of the number of offerings are out there. And I think it's a very good point you made there about that, kind of be able to pick and choose the best of breed, because when you're running a business, you clearly need a number of solutions that are probably going to provide that end-to-end journey for you and your customers. And it will be a case of that best of breed to make sure you get the best tools. And in fact, I was talking to somebody this morning where that they're integrating their system with WhatsApp, because there's no point in trying to recreate a messaging system. Let's work with the best of breed of other products that are out there in terms of accounting systems, and bolt things together in an elegant way so that a business can run with those best of breeds applications and have that kind of end to end. Because the other danger is you end up with systems that don't talk to each other. So I think there is that kind of maturity we're looking now about making sure that everything runs and joins together, and people get a really high quality experience. So, well, it's been great to chat, Ed, in this initial conversation. I look forward to chatting again and talking in a bit more depth about what Viewber's doing and how that's bringing value to the market as well. So once again, thanks for your time. It's been great to chat.
Thank you, Andrew.